Okay. So, so what do you understand by the modern literature or the modern era? So it basically started from 1900 and it is said to have lasted till 1950s. Okay. So firstly, before beginning what is modern era or what are the major aspects of it, I will give you this timeline which you need to remember and memorize as well, because it may be asked in the exam, like for which ruler, what was the time period. Okay, so what is the crux in this, that these modern era is said to have begun basically when the after the end of Victorian era, like which ended in Queen Victoria died in 1901, and after that the modern age is said to have begun. So the basic two major important events which happened in the modern era were the two world wars. First World War happened between 1914 to 1918, and the Second World War happened between 1939 to 1949. Okay, and when we are talking about the modern era, we have two basic major rulers who were ruling during that time, and we need to remember their timeline as well, which is the King Edward the Seventh, who ruled from 1901 to 1910, and then the Georgian era is said to have begun after the Edwardian era, which was ruled by King George the Fifth, and he ruled from 1910 to 1936. Okay, so let's talk about what is modern. What do we call as modern? Modern means something new which was not there, which was like a new aspect which came into the tradition. Okay, so here, as you all have referred to the previous videos of by Shahrukh, so you must have seen how Victorian era was full of like people who were shifting to the new culture and having their class consciousness in their mind, and they were not very particular about their approach towards the dealings of the society and everything. But here in modern era, what happened, when the world war happened in the in 1914, the society started getting like there was a fragmentation, and people started separating themselves. People who were living in urban areas, they started feeling as if they have been trapped. In Victorian era, you must have seen that the major population was shifting towards the urban part. 70% of the people started living in the urban area, living behind all those countryside and the simple living life they used to have. So the artificiality had taken place. But here what happened, that the society started fragmenting, and people started separating themselves and thinking about why we came to urban life. We were better doing there, and here we are having world wars where there is destruction, and the destructions are very massive. And they are using like earlier they used to have bows and arrows for war, but nowadays they are using artilleries, weapons, and the war is killing such a huge amount of people that there it is not only causing mass widespread of killing, but also poverty. Everybody is focused upon the war, everybody is thinking about war and winning it. And the place position of Europe or Britain till this time was said to have been very like permanent, and it was having power of you can say all over the world, because it has colonized so many countries. So Britain was at the center. But now, since the world war happened, what happened, that US started coming in power, because US started supplying artilleries. US started providing guns and powerful weapons to other countries to come and take part in the world war. And this made US to come in the center, and Britain started losing its power. Okay, so US started taking power and grasping the hold. People in Britain started thinking of their own country to be as they have lost their own culture or their own values. Like, you must have seen T.S. Eliot writing about tradition. He is saying that we need to follow our tradition. We have lost all those tradition and culture which we used to have. So the Britain coming in power was not only because of the world war that US, the power dimension shifted to US. There were also various reasons, such as when you see 1920s were called as roaring 20s. You must have read Great Gatsby. There you must have seen people where it was a period of middle class growth and prosperity. So there was rampant materialism, parties, alcoholism, people were enjoying their lives. They were very less concerned about each other. They were just focusing on themselves. So the middle class was rising and blooming. But after a few years in 1929, what happened? There was a stock market crash and the entire nation went into Great Depression. So the what happened due to the Great Depression, that there was unemployment at a very large scale, and drainage of wealth happened, which was accumulated by Great Britain by colonizing all other countries. They have had accumulated a lot of wealth, but now it got drained. It started getting drained, and people were becoming poor, and they were losing everything they had. But some things other than that happened. Here, earlier, what happened, that women were seen as someone who were very subjugated and having second place in the society. They were not given that much importance. But now, with this causing awareness about people, about their lives, the women started speaking their mind out, and they started asking for suffragette or the voting rights. They started asking, if the government is not doing well, then we also need to have a say in it, and we also need to take charge and to select the government of our choice, which will think about our benefit. So in 1928, universal suffragette of women was declared, which made a very huge step towards women empowerment. And at the same time, you must have remembered, if you have watched the video on Victorian era, that Education Act also came in 1870. So the Education Act which came, it also led all the people who were it was not differentiating on the base of class or class or race. So everyone was given a chance for equal education. And in 1870, the lower class people started to getting enrolled themselves in various schools and colleges, and they started getting a degree. So this mass awareness started coming in the play, and this is what we call as modernism. It was different. It was something which was not there before, and it came because of this advent of new uh, awareness, or the enlightenment which happened due to education, due to the thinking or the process of making change in the society. Okay, at the very same time, while we are talking about modern era and how Britain lost its power, we have to talk about various colonial wars which were happening. So India went against British, as we all know, in this century itself, and there were various kinds of war. So, such as Boer War. Boer War was first step towards fighting these colonial countries, and it happened in South Africa. And South people in South Africa started rebelling against British colonialism. So British, who was taking charge of all other countries, and they were becoming the masters, now they have realized their worth, and the colonial rebellion was as such a mass level that all other countries got provoked by it, and they all started going against British colonialism. Okay, so there were various other things which were happening during the same time, such as the economic system was getting destroyed because this country Britain was exporting from other colonized countries, and they were getting various taxations and other kinds of stuff from these countries, and they have now, like this, these things have been limited now, so they are not getting it in such a huge amount. So this is what the cause of economic system which was getting destroyed. At the same time, in literature various events happened, such as very very important Sigmund Freud. He published his interpretation of dreams, and he influenced the writings of that time. Like earlier what happened, people used to talk only about materialistic aspects of the society or the nature or the lives they were living in, or the kind of fragmentation they were having among themselves, and all the all the superficial level stuff they were talking about. But when Sigmund Freud came and he published interpretation of dream, so from that book we started focusing on the workings of our mind, and we started looking through the what the stream of consciousness came into being. Can you tell me who coined the term stream of consciousness?
William James.
And the name of the brother of William James is?
Henry James.
Very good. So basically, stream of consciousness is a technique in which we focus upon the thinking style or the pattern of the in thoughts which are coming into the mind of the narrator or the character who is being portrayed in the literature. Okay, earlier they were very much concerned about the rhyme, rhythm, and the meter, which was making it look very artificial, very ornamental, and there was no such as expression of the mind or the self. So they started employing very non-linear plots, which was like just like the thinking of our mind. We are thinking something at a moment, and at the another moment we are thinking of something else. So the real representation of the thoughts and how they progress started being represented in literature. They started using free verse, because whenever you start aligning yourself to write in a rhythmic way, you constrain your ideas to find a particular word which suits with your sentence or with your rhythm rhyme. So you, what you do, you just choose certain words applicable to that. But while using free verse, you are free to write whatever is coming in your mind. And they started lamenting at the fragmentation which was happening in the society. See, in the very first point I have given, society became fragmented. So they started lamenting. Okay, while when we'll talk about postmodernism, we'll see that they have started celebrating this fragmentation. Okay, so here this they are lamenting on this fragmentation, just like for example you can refer to Wasteland. In Wasteland, TS Eliot is trying to say that we are trapped and there is no way out. This is a kind of a wasteland. This life is also a kind of a wasteland in which we are trapped. Okay. Absurdism we generally study as a part of post modernism, but it had beginning from, it had its beginning from modern era, and it talked about the absurdity of life. It talked about the absurdity of human nature. Okay, and as I told you, the society was fragmented, they were lamenting over it, and that's what made them so very confused about their own tradition that they forgot it completely. And they started to idealize this modern self, they started to accept to the modern life which was nowadays they were facing and they were living in. Okay, so I hope the features of modernism are clear to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So there are, see, I'm not a person who is very much into making PPTs and then reading out the lines which are written here. So what I will do, I will just say various things. You can jot down them while I'm speaking. I'll try to go slow. I have this problem of speaking really fast. Like, I'll try to slow down myself. Just cope with me and try to write down as much as possible, because I'll be teaching you whatever I know. Okay, so just write down those points. And moreover, focus on whatever is being taught, the summaries. And afterwards, what you can do, I will tell you which are the important works, so you can go back. And yesterday in the group only I gave you a link, right? So from that link, download the PDF of the works which we have talked about, and read the summary and the character. Okay, so read about the summary and the characters. You're good to go for the net exam. So do whatever is being asked, and nothing else will come in the way. So let's start with the various writers who were writing during this era. There is various other minor writers who were preceding Joseph Conrad. I haven't taken them yet because I wanted to cover all those major writers in the sessions which are like in June, before June. So while we will end the modern era, then we will do all those minor writers all together. Okay, so let's talk about Joseph Conrad. I know you must have read uh, his one of his novels. It is mostly prescribed in the universities. So Joseph Conrad was born in 1857 and he died in 1974. Remember the chronology. And he was born in Poland. And his original name was Joseph Theodore Conrad Korzeniowski. Okay, he was a Polish British writer, as I told you, and he knew Polish, French, and English as well. He also worked on with the British Merchant Navy, and he was given British citizenship in 1886. During the job, while he was there in Merchant Navy, he spent around 20 years roaming around here and there. So he visited various islands such as Indian Ocean, South Pacific, South America, and even sailed up to Congo River in Africa. So Congo River will get a mention in his most famous oeuvre, which is The Heart of Darkness. So he has used his sailing experiences as the backdrop of many of his works. Okay, so these visits which he paid to various countries, they have become an experience, and he has talked about them in his major works. He began writing in 1886 when he got the British citizenship, and he was writing a novel named Suspense while he got heart attack and he died, and the work remained unfinished. Okay, so I have given you some major points here. Later on, you can add this in your notes, or you can make a fresh note and jot down these points. These are a few points which can be asked in your exams. Okay, so he has written a very minor work named at The Mirrors of the Sea and Some Reminiscences, which are very autobiographical in nature. This can be also asked in the exam. He has written a one work which I'll discuss in detail, named as The Heart of Darkness. So, The Heart of Darkness is such a controversial book that, in response to that, Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe wrote An Image of Africa, Racism in Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Okay, and in which he has called uh, Joseph Conrad as a thoroughgoing racist, as he is himself, being a British master, being such a huge writer. He is teaching the lessons of racism and he is propagating it. So Chinua Achebe is criticizing Joseph Conrad for that. Or when you are talking about Joseph Conrad and his work, the theme of colonialism was very much prevalent in his work, and he must be seen as writing the theme of guilt, heroism, and honor in his novels. So there is the theme of class consciousness as well as racism, post colonialism. Then the characters are having guilt. They are trying to become a kind of hero in their own way. And moreover, just at this point, that there are various novels by Joseph Conrad in which the major character dies at the end. Okay, am I going fast or is the speed okay for you?
No, ma'am, it's
This
okay.
is very fun.
Okay.
You were explaining very well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I really need these kinds of wise words from you because I was quite nervous. This is like a huge batch, and this is my first time, so I was quite nervous. Thank you so much. Thank you. So,
Ma'am,
yeah.
he passed away in 1924.
What? Oh, I'm really sorry. It's 1924. I have written by mistake. I'm really sorry. I'll correct it and send the PDF in the group. I'm really sorry. It is 1924. I must have said 1924, but I have written 19. I'm really sorry. Okay, it's a typing error. Okay. The first novel by Joseph Conrad is Almayer's Folly, and it is about a Dutch trader Casper Almayer who lives in a Borneo jungle, and the story is revolving around him and his relation to his mixed heritage daughter Nina. So there is a house which is half built, and their whole they are trying to build it, and they are having confusions. And it also talks about the critical race theory. Just write down that this work, Almayer's Folly, also talks about critical race theory, in which the writer is propagating how Britishers are helping, but these people are unavailable, not ready to match with the ideas of Britishers, and they are having their own problems at their own end. Okay, so one of the wrong decisions was to be build a large and a lavish house for British during their invasion, and the house was never completed, and it came to be called as an Almayer's Fall. Okay, then the next work I'm going to talk about is An Outcast of the Island, which was published in 1896, and it was inspired by Conrad's experience as a mate of steamer the Vida. Okay, so remember this work because Outcast of the Island is quoted in T.S. Eliot's Hollow Man. Okay, remember this. This might be asked in the exam. And see, I have given you previous year questions as well. So the question here asked in the exam was the setting of Outcast of the Island. So it is set in Malay. Okay, so Malay is the name of an island, and it is set there. Is featuring a reoccurring character, Tom Lingard, and he has also appeared in Almayer's Folly as well as in Rescue. So these are very, very important points which you need to keep in mind. I have just highlighted them so that you don't miss it out. Okay. The next work which I am going to talk about is Nigger of Narcissus. So, Nigger of Narcissus has a subtitle, A Tale of a Sea. And in one of the set exams, this question was asked. So, just remember it has two subtitles, A Tale of the Sea and A Tale of Forecastle. Okay, and it was first published in United States as The Children of the Sea in 1897. So basic summary of this novel is that in this there is a man named as James Waite. He's a black man, and he gets tuberculosis, and he's on a ship and he is having a journey. So what happens that people in the ship start thinking it to be a bad omen, and they start criticizing this man for having tuberculosis. Generally what they do, that they kill the person who has tuberculosis because they are really afraid of its spread, so they think of killing the person. But here what happens, that they at the end they start considering it to be as he needs their help, and the people, the white people, start helping this black man. Okay, so remember the summary. They might ask you the name of the major character, James Wade, and he is traveling from Bombay to London. Okay, now the most important work. So it was published in firstly in Blackwood magazine in 1899. Later on it was presented as a complete novella in 1902, and it is talking about the trip that Conrad took during the modern day. And I told you he was going on this journey while he was doing the job. So he went to Congo and he was working as a sailor. So he started thinking of this novel and he wrote it. Okay, so here are two major narrators in this novel. One is an unnamed narrator, and the second is Charles Marlowe. So Charles Marlowe is the second narrator, but the major part of the story is told by the unnamed narrator. Remember this. And Charles Marlowe is also the central character, but along with him, Kurtz is also a major character. Kurtz. Okay, so let's talk about the story. So Charles Marlowe is a man who is working as having an employment in the ivory transport business, and he got this job because of his aunt, and now he thinks of going to various parts of the country which were uninhabited or undiscovered by all those people who were uh, going on various voyages. So he joins this work, and then he gets an opportunity to go to Congo, and to he the basic job he has got is to bring back Kuds, who is an investigating officer there. So he has to bring him back to the department, and because Kuds has been living in the that part of South Africa for such a long period of time, and he has become a very major figure there. He is having a lot, like he is producing and procuring ivory at the largest level. He is giving them the most of the profits which they can get from the ivory. So while he is going on this journey, he is coming to know about the character of Kuds, and he is getting to know what the people of South Africa or this uninhabited part of the world are like. Okay, so while he is getting ready to go on this journey, the doctor is taking a measurement of his head. Okay, so they are thinking that while Marlowe will go there, he will either come as mad, or there will be something different. He will become a devil kind of a person, he will be barbaric. So they are very concerned about him, and they are just taking the measurements of his body parts to see if there are any changes which is happening in his body. Okay, so while he is going on this journey, he tells that I have had many like I have enjoyed reading maps, and I have always wondered of going to these uninhabited places. And there he meets one Russian, and that Russian tells him about Kuds, and he tells that Kuds is a man who has got so much profit for them, and he is now living there. He has become one of them. He is now like a tyrant. He has become a tyrant, and he is showing the embodiment of Europe. Okay, so basically Marlowe is pretty much determined to see what Kuds is like. So when he goes and he sees Kuds, he couldn't imagine that a person living with the barbaric people, the uncivilized people, the people of South Africa, has become one of them. So it is pretty like shocking for Marlowe, but at the same time he tries to find out what made him so barbaric, what made him such a big tyrant. Okay, so this novel is a whole experience of Marlowe and how he meets Kurtz. And when he meets Kurtz, Quds tells him that it is very natural for any person to be like that. Okay, and he sees that inhuman self of Quds while he was crawling on the face on the while he was crawling on the surface. Okay, and he just he was so barbaric that he used to kill African people and used to hang their face, the half cut body or the torso in front of his house. And people were so scared of Quds, but they thought of keeping up with him because they felt like the, you must have known this concept there. In Hindi there is a saying that दुश्मन के साथ दोस्ती कर ली. So they thought Quds to be so grateful for them that they started admiring all these ideas, all these nature of Quds, and they were pretty they were practicing of he is becoming a mythical figure there. He is a mythic, and the people are admiring Quds for the ideas which he has. Okay, Quds has one girlfriend also there, and that lady is coming to meet Marlowe, and she's also telling all the good things about Quds. And what happens later on, that the Kurds used to kill African people, as I told you, and still he was treated as a god due to fear, due to that they had no other chance, they had no other option. Rather than being killed, they started praising him, they started praying him, and the treatment of colonized revised on the hands of the colonizer. Okay. So Marlowe meets Quds and he tells that I want to take you back to the Britain or to our country, and we want you to live a normal life. But Quds says, no, I cannot go back. This is my life. This is how I live. This is who I have become. And this, I enjoy this. I am a very much part of it. And Quds is severely ill, and he dies saying horror, horror, as if he has seen some devil, and maybe that devil is he himself, which he has become during this time. Okay, so he starts saying horror, horror, and he dies. And what happens later on, Marlowe, he says these words in front of Marlowe, and Marlowe goes out of the chamber, and a boy comes and tells that Mr. Quds, he dead. Okay, so the boy announcing this word, Mr. Quds, he dead, has been taken up as a line in T.S. Eliot's Hollow Man. And when the lady, which to whom Quds was dating, she comes and she asks Marlowe a question that what did he say? What was his last words? So Marlowe tells this lady that he took your name at the end. Okay, so that's the story. Now we'll look at some questions which has been asked in the previous years. So did you understand the summary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, I'll never meet such a man again. You ought to have heard him recite poetry. Oh, he enlarged my mind. The question was, who has said these words? So these words were said by the Russian about Quds. Okay. Then the question was, the theme Conrad's Hearts of Darkness begins in, the river's name was asked, so it begins in Thames. Then the question was, the Heart of Darkness implies a narrative structure in which the main action is relayed at the second hand through an enclosing frame story. Okay, so there are a few more questions, such as anti-colonialism and Eurocentrism, two conflicting discourse present in his own culture. So these are the questions which has been asked in the exams. Readers of Taib Salih's Season of Migration to the North will undoubtedly notice its parallels with the stories of, so the correct options were Othello and Heart of Darkness. Then the question was, who has narrated the story? So an unnamed narrator narrates it. Heart of darkness, the question was, the heart of darkness opens in, so the heart of darkness opens in a boat named Nelly on the Thames River. Okay, did you like this idea of giving questions at the end?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so now we'll talk about the next work, which is Lord Jim. Lord Jim is basically about a man named Jim. It is about, he is a sailor and he dreams of becoming a hero. And but he never came in such circumstances. So what happens while he was in a ship named Patna? Remember the name of the ship? The ship named is Patna, and which was traveling to Mecca. So the ship had various Muslim passengers, and suddenly the ship sank. And what happened? Jim, being a coward, along with his other members who were on the boat, he just thought of escaping by leaving all the passenger back there and to die for. So what happened that Jim, being coward, he runs away, and the officials then tip him off his officer's duty. So he is condemned and he is made a bully, and he is being told that you are a coward, you didn't do your duty well for which you were there. Okay, so he is going for various trials, and while he was going for these trials, he meets Charles Marlowe of Heart of Darkness. I hope you remember. So when Charles Marlowe first meets Lord Jim, he feels Jim to be very arrogant and boastful, but later on he suggests Jim to go to another island named as Patusan, which is a few miles away, and he asked him to join there as a post of manager, at the post of manager. Okay, to make him get over his guilt trip. And there he starts living such a great life that he became Stuan Jim, or Lord Jim. People start praising him, people start liking Jim for his qualities, and Jim ultimately falls in love with the former post manager's daughter named as Jewel. And what happens next, that there are various inheritors who are trying to inherit this island. So there is also a pirate called Gentleman Brown who comes, and Cornelius meets him. He shakes hands with him, and they all try to destroy Jim. Okay, so there is a friend of Jim named as Don Varys, and he comes in between and saves life of Jim. But Jim takes this to be an to an like it to be an opportunity which he missed, and he again proved himself to be a coward. So to just to seek redemption, he goes to Dane Varys' father, Gentleman Brown, and he confesses his guilt and says that your son died because of me. So this person, uh, G- uh, Gentleman Brown, shoots him in chest and takes revenge for the killing of his son. So Lord Jim, or Jim, becomes so much popular because of the heroic deed which he did. So there was a question asked regarding the setting, and it is set in Malaya. Okay. And then the next question is, he feels it himself and says often that he is preparing to leave all this, preparing to leave, while he waves his hand sadly at his butterflies. So you have to tell from which book this quotation has been taken. Then Steen featured as a significant character. Then in Lord Jim. Lord Jim ends with Jim is shot through chest by Doraemon. Did I say the son's or the father's name wrong? Are you guys paying attention? So see, the son's name is Dane Varys, and this father's name is Doramin. Okay, not Gentleman Brown. Gentleman Brown is a man who is trying to take possession of Jim, and it is based on the theme of suicide. This novel is based on the theme of suicide. Okay, the next work which I am going to talk about is The Inheritors, which is an the subtitle is An Extravagant Story, written in 1901, and it is a quasi science fiction novel on which Ford Madox Ford and Conrad collaborated. So it is a story about one man named Arthur, and he is a very unsuccessful English writer. Then next work which I'm going to talk about is Typhoon, which was published in 1902, and this book was dedicated to Cunningham Graham, and the protagonist name is Nan Shan. Then another work written in collaboration with Ford Madox Ford is Romance. So you need to remember these works because they have been written in collaboration. So they might ask you in the exam. Okay, the next work which I'm going to talk about is Nostromo. The subtitle of this is A Tale of Seaboard, and it is a story of a man which is Nostromo. So in this novel, what happens? There is a dictator Riviera and Charles Gould. So they are basically having a silver mining business, and they get a lot of silver. So they think it to be like it will get stolen somehow. So what happened? The Charles Gould goes and gives these silver to Nostromo, who is an Italian white man, for keeping it safe. Okay, but Nostromo feels somehow cheated by Gould, and what he does, he feels that he has been exploited all these years by De Gaulle, so he steals the silver and tries to run away. So Nostromo, when he tries to run away, he gets caught and is being shot at the end. So you can see the theme of greed here, and how greed is leading to his own downfall. And for this novel, F. Scott Fitzgerald has once written that I would have rather have written Nostromo than any other novel. Then the next and the last work which
Ma'am,
I what
what is the setting of this novel?
this novel I Costa Guana. Yeah,
Probably located in South Africa, South America.
I will have to check it once. I also don't know, but I just know that it is set in Costa Guana. It is an imaginary place. Costa Guana is an imaginary place. I did search it while I was preparing. So it is an imaginary place. You can search it
Okay.
once again, but I have I know that it is an imaginary place. Okay, and this might be asked in the exam, so settings are very important. Remember that I have written most of them in the PPT. The next and the last work which I am going to talk about is The Secret Agent, which is A Simple Tale. The subtitle is A Simple Tale, and it deals with the life of Adolf Warlock and his work as an unnamed spy. So he is a spy, and he is also dealing with terrorism. So the novel is said to have been dedicated to H.G. Wells, who is again a very major modernist writer. And Thomas Mann, in his preface to Joseph Conrad's Secret Agent, makes a remark that the achievements of modern art is that it has ceased to recognize the categories of tragic and comic, or the dramatic classification, tragedy and comedy, and the views of life as tragicomedy. So this is a question which has been asked in the exam, that who has written the preface. Okay, so Thomas Mann has written the preface. Okay, sorry, that was not the last work. The next work which I'm going to talk about is Under the Western Eyes, published in 1911. and the novel takes place in St. Petersburg, Russia, Geneva, and Switzerland. So question has been asked about the settings, and it has been written as a response to Crime and Punishment, which has been written by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Okay. There is another work named as Under Western Eyes, which is written by Chandra Talpade Mohanty. So I have given you there. It has been written there because they might ask you in the exam. So remember that there is a similar work, but it is a feminist work, okay? And Marxist approach is there in this work. Next, Victory, An Island Tale. Psychological novelities, and Axel Hayes is the protagonist. The last novel is The Shadow Line, A Confession, and it is a story which is set against the backdrop of French Revolution and Napoleon's rise to power. And it is also talk about a man who is facing so much difficulties when he has become a captain in the Orient, and the novel is talking about the story of Razumov, who is living the life in the background of World War I. Okay, so that's it for Joseph Conrad. Okay, do you want me to continue E.M. Foster, or shall I stop over here?
Please continue, ma'am.
Okay. So just I'm giving you 2 minutes break. Just take a break and we'll continue with E.M. Foster. Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. I just wanted to ask you that are you going to provide the recorded version of this lecture which you are giving right now?
Yes, I am recording it, but let's see if it works properly. Yes, of course, we will provide you with the recorded
Because
version.
I have to leave now. I have some other work to complete.
Okay.
Can I
Okay.
leave?
Yeah, but
If you
try to
provide the recorded
like
one,
from
I
next.
want.
Yeah. Yeah, you were
Yes, tell
saying
me, ma'am.
something.
No, you go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I was saying from next time onwards, try to take the class, because we are recording it, but there might be some problem with it, with the recording, so you might not get it. So for the better thing, just be there. Okay.
Yes, I want to, but I live in hostel, and sharp at 8 we have to go for dinner. If we
Okay.
don't go, then they won't provide. That is
Okay.
why.
Okay. Okay. No issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you guys enjoying the session?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we
PPT,
are
ma'am.
enjoying.
Ma'am, I have a request to you that please explain actually whenever you explaining a novel, then please tell us the genre and years and some extra points actually. I mean to say
I
the
have
settings
mentioned
also.
I have mentioned the years beside the title itself, but I am speaking it as well. While I'm telling the title, I'm telling the years in which it got published as well. So, genre, okay, I'll try to add it, but for various, like for major works, you need to know the genres, but for other minor works, you don't need to know it. Okay, so whatever is important, whatever is really like which can be asked in the exam, I'm already trying to provide you with that. And other things I will add up if you'll tell me to. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
And please don't be dependent on the PPT, because PPT is just a mere like reflection of what I have in my mind, but it might not be the everything which I'm saying. So try to note down while I'm saying. Okay. So let's begin. Is the PPT visible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you must have heard the name of E.M. Forster. He was born in 1879 and died in 1970. I hope I have written the years correctly. I am very fuzzy. I try to write it by my own memory, and somehow it gets okay. No, never mind. He was an English novelist, short story writer, and critic. He was nominated for Nobel Prize in for literature in 20 separate years, but he didn't get one. And uh, Foster was he has visited to India, and he has spent a second spell in India in the early 1920s, being as the private secretary of Tujoki Rao III, the Maharaja of Devas. Okay. Many of E.M. Foster's novels examine class difference and hypocrisy, which we'll see in most of his novels, such as A Passage to India and other works, in which he is constantly talking about the double-sided or the hypocritical attitude of the people towards them. Okay, can anyone tell me the real name of E.M. Foster? I have forgotten to mention it here, but suddenly I remember. So, what's the real name of E.M. Foster? It is Henry Morgan. Just write it down.
Ma'am, Edward Morgan Foster.
Yes, Edward Morgan Foster and Henry Morgan as well. So, real name is Henry Morgan, and the full name of E.M. Foster is Edward Morgan Foster. So, he is talking about the various ideas of class and connectivity. So he gave one concept of only connect, and only connect is also one phrase which has been written on his tombstone, and he calls himself a professor of nature. So he was very much into writing short stories, so he called his short stories as fantasies. It might be asked in the exam. And he has written various novels. So the last and the seventh novel which he wrote, Arctic Summer, remained unfinished because he died before completing it. And he has also been a member of Bloomsbury Group. So who has founded the Bloomsbury Group? Come on. Very famous modernist writer. She's a very, very popular leader.
Ma'am, could you
Very
please
good. Virginia Woolf.
repeat again the question?
Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf. Okay. So remember that E.M. Forster was a homosexual man, about which he has talked in his novel Maurice. And he wrote one biography of his great aunt entitled Marianne Thornton. Okay. Okay, there is a power cut. I but my hotspot is working. Okay, in between, if the class gets over, just remind me on WhatsApp or somewhere. Okay, because okay, let's begin. So, in 1960, Foster appears as a witness for the defense of trial of D.H. Lawrence's most suppressed and erotic novel named as Lady Chatterley's Lover. And uh, in the work named as A Room with a View and Howard's End, the screenplay of these works have been written by Ruth Pravar Jhabwala. Ruth Pravar Jhabwala is a very famous writer, and she has also won Booker Prize for her novel. Do you remember Heat and Dust? I took one class on Booker Prize winners, and I told you about Heat and Dust. So it has been written by Ruth Prabha Jhabwala. There are a few PYQs which has been asked in the exam. So the question was, from whom did Mulkarand Raj received praise? So Mulkarand Raj received praise from E.M. Foster. E.M. Foster wrote the libretto for its opera version, Billy Budd. and there is a collection of short stories named as Celestial Omnibus, and the question was who has written it. So it has been written by E.M. Forster. Then Daniel Defoe, Moll Flanders. Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders was considered to be the best by, so it was by E.M. Forster. Epigraph of the Howard's End, the only connect. So I told you that only connect is the phrase which has been written on the tombstone of uh, E.M. Forster as well. So it is talking about future humanism. It is talking about that in this world of telegraph and all, how we need to connect to each other and how we are losing that connection which we have. Okay, so he is talking about the only connect. And then he is also he has written one various very famous work, Aspects of Novel. So he has written in that, oh dear, yes, the novel tells a story. So in which, in the Aspects of Novel, we will come across this. And then there is an another work, What I Believe, which is an essay by E.M. Forster. Listen to me, guys. While we are reading here the most important works of a writer, or the works which has been asked in the exam, just pay attention to all those works which has been given in Wikipedia, and there is no mention or no details about them in that in that section. But do try to remember them in a chronological order. At the end of the class, I will show you how to get all the works of a writer. Okay. Just on that day, I showed you how I tried to remember it by making some mnemonics. So do remember all the unimportant works which are not very famous of these famous writers. Okay, the works which are not very popular by these famous writers need to be memorized, because in the exam they are continuously asking. Okay, so What I Believe is not very important essay, but it has been asked in the net exam. So just at least try to know the title of that work. You don't need to know everything in detail, but try to know the title, or and what genre does it belong. Is it an essay or a play or a novel? Okay, just remember that. Okay, so the various works has been written by E.M. Forster. So let's start with Where Angel Fears to Tread. It has been written in 1905, and the original title of the novel is Monteriano. One question can be asked. Okay, and this question is very popular because it has been asked in various exams. The title of this work comes from Alexander Pope's An Essay on Criticism, which is from the line, For fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And it is a story about one lady named Lydia who marries an who is Lydia, who is marrying an English widow. And what happens that he is an Italian man to whom she is marrying, and the family member are sending Philip to bring her back. Okay, the family members of Lydia are sending Philip to bring her back, and Lydia is dying on the way while she's coming back. Okay, so this work is also said to have been inspired by uh, Henry James's Ambassadors. Okay, so Henry James's Ambassadors have been said to be inspired by this novel. Then the next work is The Longest Journey, written in 1907. Do you know what is a Bildungsroman?
Yes, ma'am, the development of the character.
Yes.
When a character
Yes, very
develops.
good. So from his childhood to his adulthood, we will discuss in a novel. Then it will be called as a Bildungsroman. And this novel is very much autobiographical in nature. It is talking.
Ma'am, can we consider the James Joyce novel that a portrait of an artist?
Yes,
It's a
but it's
Bildungsroman novel.
yes, but it is a
Yes.
Kunstleroman, because it is about a development of an artist. Okay, So it is a Kunstler Roman. So when we talk about development of an artist, we say it to be Kunstler Roman. Okay, this is a story about a Cambridge student, Ricky Elliott, who has a very nagging wife and he has a troubled half brother. So what happens that troubled half brother is dying by saving his brother being run over by train. Okay, so in this work, The Longest Journey, the title is taken from a P.B. Shelley's poem, Episidian, and it is about the novel about friendship or the unhappy marriage, or how brother saves a life of brother and he dies himself in that process. Okay, and it is also trying to talk about the problem of illusion and reality, which is not being represented in these days in the novels. So the major aspects of modernist novel can be said to be like, they are talking about what is happening in their lives or in the society. So they are trying to give a clear picture. Earlier they didn't show the reality of the things which were happening, like when you see Look Back in Anger. So the do you remember Alison ironing? So in kitchen sink drama they are presenting the typical reality where everything is being portrayed in front of the people. So there is nothing to hide from the society, everything is visible, everything is quite evident, and they are talking about it very openly. So this is also a very prominent aspect of modernism. Then the next work is A Room with a View, which was published in 1908. And it is about a story of a lady named Lucy Honeychurch and about a man named Emerson who meet in Italy. But her marriage is fixed with Charlotte, and she runs away from that man and tries to get in touch with Emerson. But what happens here, that this novel is not just about this. This novel is also talking about repressed sexuality and how there is a lot of difference between various classes of people, like the how people such as Italian and English people are very different in their aspect. So it is also talking about difference between Italian life and English life. So Italians are shown to be as very passionate, very impulsive and irresponsible, while Englishmen are represented as very simple, who are full of love. Okay. Now, see, there are a few important things in this novel. Just jot it down. There is a hotel, and the name of the hotel is Pension Bertolini. Pension Bertolini, and there is a river mentioned, River Arnou. River Arnou, Arnou. Okay. Okay. Next work which I am going to talk about is Howard's End. Howard's End is considered to be a masterpiece of Foster, and as it is considered as a social comedy. So I told you that the Howard's End is, of course, the only connect, which is focusing on humanism aspect of Foster. Okay, so it is based on social convention and codes of conduct which has been set for a society and for for a people of the society. Okay, they are now supposed to follow that convention and they are supposed to live by that. And there are three families, just remember the names, they might ask you in the exam like which one was not there. So the Wilcoxes, they are very rich, they are capitalist. Then Schlegel is people who are from German, and they are trying to live very real life, and they are trying to represent the people of Bloomsbury group. Okay, and the Bast, BS BSTS. So they are representing the lower middle class. So this is a novel which is talking about the mingling of these three different classes. As you can see, one is rich, one is having real life, and one is living as a lower middle class person. Okay, so these three affinities are being together, and it is talking about how rich and poor people should mingle together. Okay, and one important thing about this novel is that it has been written in an epistolary form. And what is epistolary?
Ma'am, something which is written in the form of letter.
Very good, very good.
Written letter.
Yes. So, I did I tell you about Only Connect? Only Connect is telling us about that people are so much into technology for connection. Like we are using telegraphs, telephones, and various other stuff to contact with people, but we are not understanding the concept of meeting each other, or to have some to spend some time with each other. That thing is loosening, and that affinity between us is loosening these days. So this work has been written as it has been presented in Howard Zinn, the theme of Only Connect. Then the very famous work, The Passage to India, and I will refer to it in detail. Just go back and read the detailed summary of Passage to India, as it might be asked in the exam. Okay, will you do that? Because see,
Yes, ma'am.
I have prepared
Yes,
like
ma'am.
I spent so much time in preparing all these things, revising everything. So I want you to do your best so that you get with JRF, and you just come and tell me that you got it. So I'll be really happy for you. Just do it whatever I'm telling, and you will get through it. So Passage to India has been published in 1924, and Foster started writing it in somewhere around 1913, and he took 11 years to complete this work. Okay, he took 11 years to complete this. So this is one of the finest novel written by an American writer, which is having India in its center, and it is focusing on India and the aspect in which he's talking about the relationship between an Englishman and an Indian. Okay, and how it is controversial, how it is delimiting, like everything which we think of them and they think of us. We have some preconceived notion about those Englishmen, and they also have it. Okay, so he is talking about how we can connect with each other while like while the Britishers are there and they are colonizing us. So he says that while the colonialism is there, they cannot be the two separate cultures to meet. There is no way where the Englishman and Indian can meet each other, can have a friendly and like a very blooming relationship. Okay, so this work is also presenting the similar theme, and it is set in the city of Chandrapur near Marabao caves, and it is set in India. Remember this. Okay, it is set in India, and it has a journal theme in which the protagonist, Dr. Aziz, is having a relationship with British friends, and the nature of Indian British friendship is being talked about. So this work has three sections: mosque, cave, and temple. Remember these things which I have highlighted, which I am stressing focus on, okay, because they might be asked in the exam. So let's start with the mosque. So Chandapur is a very unattractive city on the banks of Ganges in the vicinity of British buildings and Marabar caves. So Dr. Aziz, who is a surgeon and a widower, is discussing with his friends Hamidullah and Mahmud Ali about the problems of friendship with their British rulers. And afterwards, while Dr. Aziz is heading towards home, he meets Mrs. Moore in a mosque, who introduces him to her younger friend, Miss Adela Quested. Okay, so Adela Quested is the heroine of this novel. but not so as I said, heroine. But she has been given some importance, but also with a negative aspect. So we'll come to know that later on. So Adela Quested is supposed to marry Mrs. Moore's son, okay, Ronnie Hislaw. So remember the characters as well. What happens that Mrs. Aziz and his some he has friendship with some Englishmen, and they are trying to bridge the gap between the two cultures, and they are having a party named as Bridge Party at an English club, and he is trying to talk about all the misconceptions which Indians have in their mind regarding the English, and he meets various people there. So he comes to realize, like, he meets Cyril Fielding, so who becomes a very good friend with Dr. Aziz. So Aziz remembers that Aziz feels that Englishmen are not that bad. We cannot say that everyone is bad, everybody is having that colonialist attitude here. So what happens, Aziz gives them an idea to visit the Marabar cave. So they all agree. They all agree and they say, "Okay, we'll come." But when they are going to the caves, only Aziz, Mrs. Moore, and Adela Quested join, and rest other have some other work, so they don't join. So they go to Marabar cave, and in that cave, what happens? Mrs. Moore hears sudden some sounds and starts feeling dizzy. So Mrs. Moore stays at the very fag end, and what happens? Adela Quested and Aziz proceed along with her guide. So while they are going, Adela, being very superstitious and conscious about India, so she asks Mr. Aziz that, do you have one wife or two wives, or more than two? Like, she's asking questions from her preconceived notion, as if Muslims have various wives. Okay, they have this idea of propagating polygamy. So Mr. Aziz, who was very much in love with his wife who died a few years ago, feels very disheartened by this question and leaves Adela there only and goes away. But later on, he feels that he didn't do that like very brave and heroic thing. So he comes back and he sees that Adela is running away. So next day, when they come back, there is a trial which has been sent for Miss Dr. Aziz, stating that Adela had put charges on him as he tried to rape her. And Dr. Aziz is very much in shock by this. He starts thinking of what he did, like why Adela is saying so. So what happens that his own friend with Professor Godbole and Cyril Fielding, he thinks that they are also not helping him. He was having friendly relationship with Cyril Fielding, but he sees that Cyril Fielding is helping Adela in getting better. So he thinks that Cyril Fielding is in love with Adela, and he's trying to ditch him and trying to make advantage of this situation. But when the second trial happens, and Adela is again being interrogated about what happened in the cave, so she just says, "Oh, I don't remember. Something brushed at my back, and I thought it to be somebody who is trying to touch me inappropriately. I don't remember the exact thing." So the trial ended, and Aziz is declared as if he hasn't done anything. But this thing touches the heart of Aziz, and he starts feeling a kind of hatred towards these Englishmen. And what happens next? That while why I told you he had this preconceived notion that Cyril Fielding has some relationship with Adela. But what happens that Adela and Mrs. Moore go back to England, and Cyril Fielding goes and marries Mrs. Moore's daughter. Okay, and after a few years, when Cyril Fielding comes back, and Aziz asks him, "You didn't marry Adela?" So he says that, "No, I didn't marry her. I was just being friendly with her, because she needed a man that time." But I didn't love her, and never did I had no doubt that you did it. I never questioned it to you, but you were having preconceived notions about me, and that's why you judged me. So this work is also telling us about these two men who are wanting to have friendship among each other, but due to the historical circumstances, they do not allow to develop or bloom this kind of a friendship between them. Okay. So there has been a few PYQs which has been asked in the exam. In Indian Ink play, do we see reworking of E.M. Foster's Passage to India as a cameo? Kim, and these works are given to be arranged in the chronological orders. The works are Kim, Sons and Lovers, A Passage to India, Brave New World. That's why I'm telling you again and again to remember the chronology. Okay. And the question was Mrs. Moores is a character in. So the answer is A Passage to India. There are a few more questions. I'll put this in the group and you can go through it. Sorry. I'll not like the time is extending so much, so I'll just tell you the summary of Maurice and aspects of novel. So Maurice, as I told you, E.M. Foster is a homosexual man, and the novel Maurice by E.M. Foster appeared posthumously. When what is posthumous? Like the publication after the death of the writer. So it published in 1971, and it had an homosexual theme. So it had an homosexual theme. That's why he did not want to publish it while he was alive. Okay. So it was influenced by his open homosexual friend, which is Edward Carpenter, and this has been asked in the exam. Okay. So who has been influenced, like from whom this work has been influenced? So this work has been influenced by the friend of E.M. Foster, whose name is Edward Carpenter. Then the last, I guess that it is the last work, yeah. So the last work which I'm going to talk about is Aspects of Novel, which is an essay on literary criticism, and it is basically a series of lectures which were delivered at the Trinity College, Cambridge. So he is talking about what makes a good novel. So he is telling about all those aspects which we need to focus upon while we are talking about the a good novel, or while we are trying to locate what should be the structure of a proper novel. So he mentions 7 aspects: story, character, plot, fantasy, prophecy, pattern, rhythm. Okay. And he also talks about the characters such as flat character or round character. So flat character means the one who does not change in his life, the character who remains the same throughout the novel, and the round character is the one who changes and develops into a better human being while the novel progresses. Okay. So that's it for today. I hope you all liked the session and enjoyed it. So let's have some chit chat. And if you want to ask any question, you can. If you wanna feel if you feel like giving some um ideas which we can incorporate while making PPTs or while delivering the lecture, you're most welcome. So, did you like it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Hey, ma'am. So
Ma'am.
Any inputs?
hello.